So good afternoon. This is our monthly Nebula presentation. This is sort of a high-level overview of Nebula, what it is, how it works, how it helps you, how it makes your life easier. As we go through today, there is a question and answer box in the Zoom interface. Go ahead and use that to send in questions as we go along. And I will try to answer most of them as we go through today. So we'll start by talking a little bit about what Nebula is in general. So as you see here on the slide, we call it the first full stack cloud networking solution for SMB. We launched this all the way back in 2016. And at that time, the main players in this sort of cloud managed space were Cisco's Meraki and Aerohive, and both of those were really heavily focused on the enterprise space. So we saw what those systems were offering, how they helped change the way and simplify things when it comes to setting up a new network and managing it. And we said, this is something that would be great for the SMB space, but it was just too gosh darn expensive for the solutions that were available. So that's where we got the idea. And we had that initial launch back in 2016. At that time, it included our wireless access points, switches, and security gateways. And since that time, we've constantly been improving it, working on the interface, adding new features and functionality, and expanding the availability of products. So just in case you aren't clear on what Nebula is cloud managed networking. Basically, it moves the entirety of configuring network devices into a cloud instance that we ourselves run on the Amazon AWS platform. So with Nebula, there is no local configuration required in most cases. Everything is done through the cloud. So anywhere you have access to a internet connection and a web browser, you have access to all of your networks and your customers' networks. So Nebula is made up of just a couple things here. You've got your hardware components. You've got the mobile app. And then the core of it here is what we call Nebula Control Center. You'll see it often abbreviated as NCC, and that is the cloud-hosted portion of this. So all of our devices have agents built in and are able to communicate directly to the cloud. So because of this, there's no additional hardware that needs to be purchased. There's no cloud keys. There's nothing like that. But in addition, it means you don't have to have your whole network on Nebula. If you just need Nebula for AP management, you can do that. If you throw in a few extra Nebula switches onto your network, you can manage them that way. So it doesn't require that you have a whole solution and everything be on Nebula. And because of that, it also means it works with anything else that your customer may have already deployed or any other additional hardware you need that Zyxel doesn't provide. So the main idea here was to take a look at all of these things that go into setting up a new network and to try to remove as much of this as we could as possible. And for that we can't remove, to reduce the amount of time it takes to do. So you can see here, this is your typical network setup here from, purchasing your equipment all the way through doing deployments. And with Nebula, you see we're able to either eliminate or drastically reduce the amount of time you need to spend doing many of these different things. So for instance, installing the equipment, it goes a lot simpler because you don't have to plug in and directly access each device and configure it to get it onto the network. It's going to automatically reach out to the cloud, download its configuration, download firmware updates, and be ready to go. When it comes to monitoring your networks, Nebula handles all of that for you. When it comes to remote access, there's no need to set up VPNs or port forwards. You just log into the website, to our Nebula website, and everything is right there for you. Logs can be stored in the cloud. With Nebula Pro, we can store up to a year's worth of logs in the cloud. And we make it a lot simpler to push out firmware updates, configuration changes, things like that. So now we'll go through some of the individual features here of Nebula. So the big one here is being up and running in minutes. You can create a Nebula account, plug in an access point, configure that access point, and have it broadcasting an SSID and a second SSID that provides captive portal services in under 5 minutes. It's really easy to do. We have a number of different tools in there, such as wizards to help simplify a lot of things, and a lot of products just default to settings, which should work in most environments. So you can start doing setup without unboxing. At any point, you can log into that Nebula interface, create a new organization or customer, create new sites under that customer of yours, and start configuring a lot of the settings. That's before you've bought any of the hardware or fully spec'd out exactly what you're needing to do. So anytime you've got some spare time, you can be working on getting things ready in advance. Once you get the hardware sent to you, you don't need to take it out of the box. You simply use our mobile app, scan the QR code on the box, and assign it to your customer and the site it's going to. And then you can ship that hardware off to site to be plugged in. As soon as that hardware gets a internet connection and power, it will be able to register with the cloud and start downloading that configuration that it needs based on where it's been assigned. So again, nothing extra is needed here. There's no cloud keys. There's no virtual machines that need to be run on your own server somewhere. Everything is managed and handled by the Zyxel cloud. And again, anywhere you've got internet access in a web browser, you have access to all of your customers' networks. So Nebula has built-in captive portal functionality, a plethora of ways of setting up captive portals. So whether you're trying to provide guest access at a coffee shop or small hotel, or if you're providing access for vendors who are visiting one of your customers, we've got solutions that you can use here. The captive portal functionality is built into the access points themselves, so it doesn't matter what sort of gateway they are running. You can provide captive portal on one of the Wi-Fi networks that you've got. And you've got the flexibility there to do things like, just a terms of service agreement to require them to log in with a username and password. You can use Facebook for them to log in for more commercial establishments. So there's a lot of flexibility there. On the wireless side of things, all of our access points support smart mesh. So we've got that ability there. So if you need to, extend coverage out, but you don't have a hardwire connection, we can do that using mesh. Also, by enabling smart mesh, you can set it up so if something happens to the wired backhaul to an access point, it will automatically switch over into mesh mode until that wired connection is fixed. We support, of course, WPA2, WPA3, both pre-shared key and radius. And we support all the industry standards for fast and quick roaming. So on the switch side of things here, you get, the same thing you get with most of our switches here. You get intelligent PoE, the ability to free up PoE budget based on the actual demands of connected PoE devices. Various network protections in there, including, obviously VLANs, doing 802.1x authentication, loop guard, DHC server guard, etc. And the ability to basically virtually stack your switches. You can configure ports on multiple switches at the same time. So all updates are done through the cloud over the air, including firmware updates. So there's no reason for you to go on site to fix things or change things. And on the security gateway side of things, we make it really easy to set up site-to-site VPN connections between Nebula managed locations, as well as making it easy for remote users to be able to get in onto that network. Nebula has been built from the ground up with the idea that, this is for you. You're going to have lots of customers, and those customers may or may not have lots of different sites. So we've spent a lot of time organizing the Nebula interface to make it really easy to jump between customers and jump between sites. So this is your snapshot view here. This is looking at an organization. So that would be one of your customers. We call it an organization. And you can see here, we give you a snapshot view of all the sites that that customer has. We have Google Maps integration. So, if you've got a customer, a lot of sites in a lot of different places, you can visually see where each site is. And then we give you a quick snapshot of what's going on that network. Then once you choose a network to manage, it takes you to this dashboard here. So you've got a number of different widgets. These are all configurable, which ones are there and where they're located. So you can see just what you need to see. But some of the things you can see on here is, how many users are currently on the wireless network. how much PoE is being utilized versus your combined PoE budget on the network. And then if you're using one of our security gateways, we can show you which individual users or applications are using different amounts of traffic and things like that. Up at the top here, you've got two drop downs. One is a list of customers. And then once you've chosen a customer, a list of the sites that that customer has. So it's really easy to jump from one customer or one site to another. And then we've broken out the different types of products on the left. You simply go to those to either view the status of your connected devices or to do your configuration changes. So this is an example here. Here's our Wi-Fi interface here. So you can see there's a list of clients that are shown here, and we show whether they are currently connected or not. And then you've got a lot of different categories here of information that you can show. And again, this is all customizable. So you can, remove stuff that you don't care about, but you can see things like, the brand of network adapter that the client is using, which SSID they're connected to, their signal strength, what band they're on, what channel they're on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can also see utilization over time. So you could see, when was that network busy, when has it not been busy, et cetera. Similar here over on the switch side of things. You've got down here, you've got your showing you bandwidth utilization over time. And then up here at the top, we show you what's going on with all your switch ports, whether something is plugged into them or not, whether the plugged in device is using PoE, and whether that plugged in device is a gigabit or a 10100 connection. When it comes to configuring, you'll see a screen there showing you your switch and all your ports. Simply select your ports, hit configure, and you'll be taken into this interface here where you can set up a lot of your core features of those switch ports across multiple switches. Just do it all at once. So everything I've been talking about since we went to these green slides, this is all included as part of the free version of Nebula. So Nebula, the core version is free. There is no limit to the number of devices you can manage with the free version of Nebula. There is no limitation to the number of customers you can manage with the free version of Nebula. So it's really flexible for you there. And it's something that really, I think, sets us apart from most of the other cloud managed solutions that are on the market, which generally require you to have a license for each device in order to be able to manage them. Or in the cases where they do offer some sort of free version, that free version is limited to a very small number of devices or networks that you can manage. Now, we do also offer some licenses which unlock additional features, and we will get to them here in just a minute. And James, I saw your question. I will get to it here in a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about how Nebula works. So you will see on our price list and on product descriptions the term Nebula Flex. So when Nebula first launched back in 2016, we sort of copied the Cisco Meraki model, where the hardware is essentially the same, but there are some minor differences that determine, if you wanted something that's in the cloud, you have to buy the cloud version of the product. If you wanted something that's managed the traditional local way, either directly or via SNMP, you had to buy a different version of that product that only worked that way. So over time, we realized that just doesn't, while it may work in the enterprise space, it doesn't work in the SMB space. So instead, we've now moved to this Nebula Flex model, where our hardware that supports Nebula also supports standalone mode. So you have the ability to standardize on certain SKUs, and you have the flexibility of deciding to use Nebula to manage them or not. So anything that says Nebula Flex, you have the ability to use it the traditional way by managing it directly via GUI or command line or SNMP, or you have the ability to put it into Nebula Cloud mode and manage it through the Nebula Cloud. Now, one key thing here you need to keep in mind is it needs to be one or the other. You can switch at any time between the two, but the configurations don't get translated between the two modes. So that is something to keep in mind, that if you go from one mode to the other, you will need to reconfigure the device. And then we have Nebula Flex Pro. So this ties into the fact that we do have some additional licenses you can purchase that unlock additional features. So Nebula Flex Pro is our higher end license that unlocks some additional MSP focused features. So if you see a product that calls itself Nebula Flex Pro, all that means is we've bundled 1 year of a Pro Pack license with that piece of hardware. Otherwise, it's the same thing. It can work in standalone mode or it can work in the Nebula Cloud. with the exception of our access points. Our access points offer a third mode. So if you're using our access points and it says Nebula Flex Pro, you can use it standalone. You can use it in the Nebula Cloud. You have a bundled Pro Pack license if you want to use that. And you have the ability to use it with a local area controller, which these days is pretty much any of our security appliances. So if you want to do local management with a local wireless controller, you do need to buy the Nebula Flex Pro version of the product, even if you aren't going to be using Nebula. So just a quick rundown here on our products. As you can see, we've split them up between Nebula Flex and Nebula Flex Pro. So when it comes to our access points, it's all of our lower end business class switches, basically anything that starts with a 1 or a 2. On the switch side of things, it is our GS1920 V2 series, the XS1930, the XGS1930. And then on our security gateways, it is the USG Flex series, which does not come with a bundled UTM license. For Nebula Flex Pro, it's all of our business class access points that starts with a number 5 or a number 6. On the switch side of things, it's the GS1350 series, the GS2220 series, the XS3800, and it will also be on the new XGS 2220s when those come out. And then on the security side of things, Nebula Flex Pro, where you get that bundled 1-year license, is on any of the USG Flex or ATP series that come with UTM out of the box. It's part of that UTM bundle. So James here had a question on the ATP series. James was asking, when do I have a roadmap for the build out to Nebula? So the short answer to that is I don't have a detailed roadmap I can share with you on enhancements to the ATP gateways. But this is probably something that's going to remain largely the same going forward, which is if you are using Nebula to manage one of your security gateways, there are going to be less features than if you are using that security gateway in standalone mode. And part of that has to do with the fact that Nebula, the big story behind Nebula is simpler, easier, less time to do stuff. Whereas on security gateways, for some of you users out there, you really get down and dirty with some of the configuration, the policy rules, things like that. And it's just hard to do that in the Nebula interface without ruining sort of the aesthetic of keeping things simple and easy to do. So if you're using our security gateways, if you're a power user, you probably want to use them in standalone mode. If you're not a power user, Nebula is probably the way to go, especially if you're somebody that isn't traditionally been selling security appliances and aren't familiar with setting up all those rules. Nebula makes it a lot easier for you. We are continuing to add more features through the Nebula interface, but I don't believe anytime in the near future you're going to get parity between standalone and using Nebula mode. Just because of the differences in the target market that we're hitting and the goals we're trying to achieve. So we'll start talking about Nebula licensing. So for Nebula licensing, we have the free version, which we refer to as the base pack. James is asking about turning off cloud saving mode. So we're getting slightly ahead of ourselves, but let's go ahead and I'll answer that now. So cloud saving mode is a function of the free version of Nebula. And basically the free version of Nebula, well, wait a minute, let's go ahead and finish this slide because we'll have a slide up here in just a second and then we'll talk about it then. So anyway, there's the free version of Nebula. There's the Pro Pack, which has traditionally been the only license we offer on the Nebula devices. It unlocks a lot of additional features that are aimed primarily at the MSP space, things about logging, number of admin accounts, reporting, things like that. And we'll go through those. And then year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we added Plus Pack. Plus Pack just gives like those most common upgrades that people are looking for. And it was something we rolled out specifically to compete with things like Netgear and TP-Link's cloud offerings. So the key thing here when we're talking about these licenses, the Plus and the Pro Pack, is every device in an organization needs to have an active license. If any device does not have an active license, you won't be able to use the Pro or Plus pack licenses. So that's one area where sometimes people get a little confusion at. If you've got a customer, you've added some products, at the initial configuration, and down the road, you've added some more products into it, you can end up in a situation where products are expiring at different times. So you will get email notifications letting you know, hey, these products coming up, you need to add a license to them, they're set to expire. And once the license does expire, there is a 15-day grace period before the organization drops back to the free version. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the differences here. Now we'll get to James' question. So cloud saving mode. So the free version of Nebula keeps 24 hours worth of logs in the cloud that we keep there for you. Now you can always export those to a syslog server, but the Nebula hosted logs are only stored for 24 hours. If you do not log into your customer's site or into that customer organization or into the Nebula interface for 30 days, we will stop collecting those logs. So unfortunately, there's no way to get rid of that. So if you're using the free version of Nebula and you want the logs, you do have to log in once a month just to reactivate so it knows that you are actually paying attention and need that log information. If you're not logging in after those 30 days, it'll stop collecting it. And then, of course, once you log back in, it will notify you of the banner across the top of the page that says cloud saving mode is on and give you the ability to turn it back off and start collecting logs again from that point. So I hope, James, that answered what your question was. So now we're going to go through and talk about some of the differences here between the different versions of Nebula. So we'll start by talking about what's the same. So again, all versions give you access to an unlimited number of devices and customers that you can manage in the cloud and give you access to all the core functionality in Nebula. We give you access to what we call zero-touch auto deployment, the fact that you don't have to configure anything on the device to get it to talk to the cloud. It will do it automatically. The ability to push out firmware updates and do some basic scheduling of those firmware updates is part of the free version of Nebula. Access to our iOS and Android application, you have access to those. So where we start getting into some of the differences here is the logging. So we just talked about it. The free version only gives you 24 hours worth of logs. And if you don't log in for 30 days, it'll stop collecting those. Plus Pack will keep a week's worth of logs in the cloud. Pro Pack will keep a year's worth of logs in the cloud. Next area of differences is the number of admin accounts that each one of your customers can have. So the free version of Nebula gives you 5 admin accounts for each organization. Plus Pack upgrades that to 8. Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of admin accounts. So it's really more focused on larger MSPs where you've got a large number of users who may be doing administration. The next one comes down to our cloud authentication server. So we have a server hosted in the cloud that you can use to do MAC filtering. You can use to store usernames and passwords for guest access, things like that. So the free version of Nebula allows you to store 50 items in that cloud database. The Plus Pack gives you 100 items in that database, and then the Pro Pack gives you an unlimited number of entries into that cloud database. All the regular core features of the products are available in all versions. MAC filtering and 802.1x authentication are available in all versions, and all of them have the regular captive portal features. So now we'll start talking more about some of the other additional differences here. When it comes to firmware scheduling, Plus and Pro Pack give you advanced scheduling. So that allows you to go in and set different schedules based on the type of device, giving you different schedules for each individual device, things like that. We give you the ability to generate automatic email reports with the Plus and Pro Pack. So those are things, and you can set them up for, they can show you what's going on the wireless network, the wired network, your security gateway. You can set them up to have them emailed to your customer, and you can add your own logo onto those reports so you can show them what's going on their network and show that you are managing their network for them. So again, that requires Plus or Pro Pack. We have an automatic network topology view. which shows you, all of the devices on the network and what is connected to what. That requires plus or ProPack. If you want to use what are called Wi-Fi vouchers for a guest network, so this is kind of like selling access to get onto the guest network, that does require plus or ProPack. And then from here on out, everything is going to be ProPack exclusive. So the first one here is a user audit / change logs. So you can have a year's worth of logs, but not only are we storing the regular logs for you, we are also keeping track of which admin made which changes to the configuration and when. So if you're troubleshooting things on the network, you can trace things back and figure out who made that change, so you can call them up and ask them why they changed what they did, so you can understand what was going on. The ability to sync and clone sites in an organization is something that ProPack unlocks. The ability to use templates to automatically configure lots of different configuration changes at the same time on the switches is part of that. The ability to back up and restore configurations off your switches is part of ProPack. The ability to open a ticket directly from the Nebula interface to our HQ team back in Taiwan, that is something that requires the ProPack. We have additional advanced AAA, particularly when it comes to working with third-party Radius servers. That requires ProPack. That also unlocks Facebook Wi-Fi, the ability to do dynamic VLAN assignment, dynamic pre-shared key. Those require ProPack licenses. We have this advanced Wi-Fi, including the ability to use artificial intelligence to automatically modify your Wi-Fi settings. That requires ProPack. Advanced IGMP settings on your switches, that requires ProPack. And some other stuff there, but those are the main things there that differentiate those 3 licenses. So the vast majority of our users are using the free version. So just to show you here, this is the ProPack Wi-Fi interface where you can see we are storing 30 days worth of performance information, tracking it by user over time. So we can see which users are having problems with the quality of their connection, and then we can automatically make changes to the network to try to solve those for you. This is that automatic topology view where we'll automatically map out what is connected to what, and then give you the ability to hover over those and see what each thing is. So again, if you're going to a customer site, you haven't been there for months, or maybe somebody else set up the site and you're trying to troubleshoot things, this can be really helpful for you to figure out, what's upstream from the device that's having issues, so you can figure out what may be causing those issues. So that is it as far as talking about that Plus Pro licenses. And now I'm going to talk about some of the other licenses that are available. So the other one here is called the MSP pack, or the MSP license. So whereas the Plus and the Pro pack are a license that you have to buy for each device to be managed, the MSP license is a license that you buy for each admin account that you want to have access to these extra features. So there's no limitation on the number of sites you have. If your admin account has an MSP license, you can have all of these features on every single one of your customers. So the main one here, the first one you're going to see here is this view here, the MSP portal. So this shows you on one screen all of your customers and a quick summary of what's going on those customers. So you can see which customers are using the free version of Nebula, which ones are using the paid version of Nebula. If using paid, if they've recently expired or are going to expire soon, how many sites each customer has, how many devices they have, and how many may be on or offline, etc. It also unlocks some additional stuff here, so you can add your own branding to the Nebula interface, and you can remove our contact information from the Nebula interface with that MSP license. It gives you something here we call teams. So it allows you, if you have a large number of admin accounts and a lot of customers, it simplifies managing those and which are assigned to which customers. So you can create teams and then simply assign teams to individual customers or sites rather than having to do it as a user by user basis. The ability to synchronize certain settings between different customers. You can do that using this. And then the MSP license also gives you the ability to get email alerts for all of your accounts, whether they're using the free version of Nebula or one of the Pro or Plus packs. So, if you've got a lot of customers using the free version of Nebula and you want to be able to get those email alerts, the MSP license may be the way to go for you. So now we'll talk about security licenses. So these are, really kind of independent from Nebula. These are the licenses that unlock additional security services on your products. So if you have the old NSGs, which we no longer offer, the UTM licenses for that are called the NSS Security Pack. If you are using a USG Flex, the license you need is a UTM Security Pack to unlock those additional security gateway hosted unified threat management services. If you are using the ATP series, this is tied into the gold license. I know it's kind of confusing. We've got all these different names, but it's just because each of these different security gateways has a different set of UTM services. So we do need to differentiate which license you need. And then we also offer secure Wi-Fi. So secure Wi-Fi is a feature of our access points and our security gateways. It is not Nebula exclusive. You can use it even without Nebula. And what it does is it allows you to essentially turn our access points into a cloud or security appliance managed VPN appliance. So you use the secure Wi-Fi license, and then you just simply ship out a access point to your end user. They plug it into their existing home router, and it will broadcast an SSID that is essentially a VPN connection back to the main office. I think I've got the next slide here shows it. So it's essentially creating a VPN tunnel between that SSID and the main office there. So it saves you some of the hassle of trying to send users home and configure their laptops to be able to work remotely. It's designed to solve issues where if you give somebody a VPN appliance, they may end up double natted behind the router they already have at home that they can't replace or don't know how to configure to bypass double natting. So it solves all of those issues and allows you to manage those remote users in the cloud. In order to use this, that SSID requires 802.1x, and it requires two-factor authentication. So that way there's no risk of an unauthorized user connecting to that SSID and getting that VPN connection access back to the office. And then lastly, we have something new that we launched earlier in this year, which is the Connect and Protect licenses, abbreviated CNP. These are security licenses that are available for some of our access points. So if you, for instance, you've got a customer, you want to provide additional wireless security, and they do not have a UTM security gateway on the premise, or they've got a router that was provided by their ISP and you don't have access to be able to configure it and set it up. This gives you the ability to offer UTM-like services on the access points without needing to worry about changing or doing anything on their gateway. It is a lightweight UTM, so it's based primarily on IP reputation filters, and it allows you to block things like spam sources, IP scanners, botnets, phishing URLs, proxies, et cetera, et cetera. So there's two versions of it out there. Depending on the access point you are using, the regular CNP works on our NWA 1123 ACV3, our WAC 500, and the WAC 500H. And then we offer CNP Plus licenses, which offer that same IP reputation filter. They also give you the ability to do bandwidth rules based on individual applications. So that's available on our NWA 110AX, the 210AX, the WAX 510D, 610D, 630S, and 650S. And these licenses are per AP. And it does not have to be applied to all APs in that customer. So for instance, if you only want to offer this level of security in public areas, but not in the back end or vice versa, you can just buy the number of licenses and just apply it to those APs that you want to have this functionality. So Wayne was asking on the licenses. He needs a list of licenses so he can sell with SKU numbers. So I'm assuming, Wayne, you're one of our resellers. You should have access via our salesperson, your salesperson. So that'd be David Chen, Jacob Olson, or Andy. These should be providing you a price list once a month that has all of them listed in it. In addition, you can just go to Google and type in, I think, Zyxel license finder, and it will take you to a wizard that you can use to find the appropriate licenses based on the individual product that you're looking at. The only challenge with that is it's not going to give you the distribution part number, but it will give you the back end part number. So you can take that, pull up your price list, Control F, and search for that number, and it will take you to the number to use for that distributor. We're almost done, guys. Thanks for sticking it out here. So if you're interested in Nebula, you haven't played with it yet, you can just go to nebula.zyxel.com, click Get Started, and there is the ability to log into a live demo account, so you can log in and start playing with it. If you'd like to actually test it out yourself in more detail, if you're a part of our partner program, reach out to your salesperson and we can send you, I think it's a 30-day demo of some equipment that you can plug into your lab and play around with, for real. And then just lastly here, we are on LinkedIn. We are there as Zyxel US channel. So if you'd like to link to us or connect to us, that's where you would do it. Most of our webinars are recorded, both mine, Try's, the more technical webinars that Marcus puts on, they're all recorded and they are uploaded to YouTube. There are a bunch of different Zyxel channels on YouTube. So the one for the North America market here is called Zyxel America channel. And that's where you will find all of those. So if you've missed something or you're looking for a technical one that you haven't seen in a while, you can go there to find it. And with that, guys, we are done with today's webinar. Thank you for joining us and sitting through this with me today. I'll stick around for a few minutes here. So again, if you have questions, use the question and answer interface in Zoom to send those in, and I'll try to answer them for you. In the meantime here, my email is up there on screen. It is Sean R. Sean is spelled S-H-A-W-N. So Sean R at Zyxel.com. Feel free to provide, feedback, suggestions, complaints, angry rants, whatever you have, you can always email me directly. And of course, you can always reach out to your salesperson with any feedback they have and have them, run it through to the correct person internally if you're not sure who it is. And I'm not seeing any questions. Thanks for your comment there, James. So I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. So again, if there's anything else you need, whoops, here we go. Larry Doyle. So let me answer Larry Doyle. So Larry's got an interesting one. He's in Ireland. So Zyxel is broken up into regions. So I'm in the US office. We handle the United States, Canada, and then we're also linked to the Central American office. And I think Mexico these days actually falls under Central America, even though they're technically not. But anyway, that's where we handle here. Europe has a number of different offices. They have their own partner programs and their own policies as far as demos and things like that go. So you're going to need to check with whoever the local distributor is or your local office to find out. I unfortunately don't know how things are handled in Europe or know specifically if there's an Ireland office or if it's handled by one of the other offices in the EU. So you'll have to just reach out to them. I'm sure if you don't know who that is, I'm sure if you Google search, just simply Zyxel in Ireland, it should take you to the webpage for it. We also have it on our website somewhere, but I think just searching Google is probably the quickest way to find a link to whoever handles Ireland for you. But anyways, guys, thanks for joining us. And if you have anything else, just either email me directly or send it to your sales rep and they will forward it to me or whoever the appropriate person is to answer. Thanks, guys.